Hi, this is Micah. I will be going over our team's planning and the process we implemented. Our group met several times via instant message and Skype to go through our team's process, pre-game planning, and group member roles. To be able to contribute to the group's agile process, each member was expected to review and know the class lectures and references cited for the agile process, Scrum, and XP. Roles for each member of the group were initially self-designated in keeping with the Scrum process. As we progressed and realized that more roles, practices, or documents were required, our group adapted by volunteering to take on additional work as needed. In this way, our group could be fluid and use evolutionary adaptation to maintain progress on the project. Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Customer were all self-assigned by the group. Each member of the group was expected to participate in the group following the group's documented process. However, a single individual, Tao, was designated Scrum Master to make sure the overall process was maintained. The Product Owner and Customer roles were collectively taken by the group. In times of disagreement or non-clarity, a single member played the role of Product Owner to ensure progress and customer representation. For our pre-game planning, one person, myself, took the role of customer spokesperson and came up with a company name, company's vision and goal for the program, system features, and stakeholder profiles. The group reviewed and endorsed this plan. Another team member, Tony, came up with budget estimates for the company, and this was also endorsed by the team. Finally, all the team members contributed to producing the program's requirements and the product backlog. Each member of the group acted as a customer and made 3 to 4 user stories, which were then prioritized. Again, acting collectively as a customer/product owner, we decided which features should be implemented and in what phase, and collectively made the product backlog. Since the requirements for this project state that there must be at least 3 iterations, we prioritized user stories based on difficulty to complete, the harder, more risky user stories being completed in the first iteration phase, and the easier requirements being completed at later stages. We tried to group similar requirements into the same iteration to have as much complete working code as possible for each iteration. Estimates were produced at this stage concerning the release of individual user stories and the overall development cost. From the product backlog, the sprint backlog for the first iteration was developed. All of the priority 1 requirements were added to the sprint backlog. The game planning phase consisted of analyzing systems needed to run and test the program, including Java code, JUnit testing, and the Android operating system, and developing code for those systems. It was deemed most efficient to divide the group into smaller working pairs, one pair consisting of Tao and Tony working on the Java code, and the other, Annapurna and Hani, working on the GUI development. The other group member, myself, would primarily focus on the documentation involved in the process and organizing Scrum meetings. During this phase, Scrum meetings were held on a daily basis via instant messaging or email due to geographically separated locations and conflicting schedules. Our preference was on the former, as it is more consistent with the Scrum framework. However, email updates were used on days group members could not instant message. The Scrum meetings focused on 5 Scrum questions, and we tried to keep the meeting as brief as possible to maintain the agile spirit. At the end of the iterations, the group met via Skype. The iteration was reviewed, requirements were moved to the sprint backlog if necessary, the work done so far was demoed via screenshots, code, or application demo, and the next iteration was planned. The first iteration featured the most involved and riskiest work and presented the largest problem for the group. We initially planned on completing 8 user stories, but did not have any of those meet the strict XP release standards by the end of the iteration. At the sprint reviewed, we demoed what we had accomplished so far via screenshots and code presentation. We decided that we were close to our iteration goals and did not have to change our strategies, though we added what was not completed to the next iteration's sprint backlog. During the second iteration, we completed all of the previous iterations' work and were able to gain speed and finish additional user requirements, leaving only 2 of the initial 18 user requirements for the final iteration. The final iteration was finished early, and the group decided to release the product a day early. During the post-game phase, the group implemented procedural testing for the GUI and developed a tutorial for the product user.
Hi, this is Annapurna. I worked on the GUI development part of the project. Installing the Android application, working on sample apps, and playing around with the emulator has been a great learning curve. Once we got the hang of it, we proceeded with the development of the user stories. We designed the application user interface and then developed the priority 1 requirements required for the first iteration. Initially it took us some time, to play around with it. The problems in the initial stage were mainly due to the lack of Java and XML programming experience and as well as Android knowledge. Then comes the QA part. The testing is done in two parts. The first one is the binary search Java function, and it is tested using JUnit, and that's basically a unit testing. For GUI testing, we have done functional testing. We wrote down all the possible test scenarios and test cases required before coding. Once the development is finished, we have executed the final test cases. We found a couple of issues in the first cycle of testing, and we got them fixed later and started testing again till we are done with all the test scenarios without any exception. So this is pretty much about our testing and development part of the user interface.
Hello, I'm Thao Nguyen. I'm going to talk about the Java code development process for our Android application. This is our binary search application which have label, text box, and add buttons. When it comes up, the search button is disabled. Number can be input into the text box with hint for valid number. You click on the number and do the add button. You add number randomly and it will be shown in the list text box with the counter of how many number was added, and it's displayed in sorted order. When you enter invalid number, you will get an error message displayed. Or if you enter a duplicate number, you also get an error message to tell you about that. When our list of array get to 8 number, the search button is now enabled. We can enter in a value to search. The index of the key will display below. If we enter in a number that's not in the array and we search for it, it will say not found. The number is not in the array. When our array gets to the size of 12, the add button is now disabled, so you cannot add any more number to the list of 12. When you enter in the search value that invalid means more than 100, you also will get an error message that says it's invalid. To exit the program, you enter 0.